These. My name is Steve Blank. I'm the editor and publisher of Blank Slate Media, and I'd like to welcome everyone to our discussion on buying and selling a home on Long Island during COVID-19. Let me start by introducing our four panelists, starting with Anthony Piscopio, Senior Executive Manager of Sales for the North Shore for Douglas Elliman. Deborah Hauser, Chief Operating Officer of Daniel Gale Sotheby's International Realty. Dennis McCarthy, Senior Managing Director of Compass. And Phil Racy's President and CEO of Turnkey Real Estate and a columnist for Blank Slate Media. So let me discuss, this is very timely, our discussion, because I guess let's start where we are this moment. There was a shutdown, a lot of business was lost, things picked up the last several months with pent-up demand, and now we're in this situation with the coronavirus spiking. So let me start with Anthony, and where are we, and where do you see this going? And I'll give all of you a chance to discuss that.
No, you can call me Steve. You call me Tony, Steve. Thank you.
Okay.
I have to tell you, it was very challenging when we did shut down. Thank God, the technology to move these properties was there, where everything became virtual. Now remember, you had to train your entire staff now to be non-hands-on and start promoting properties through the web or through walkthrough videos and drone videos and all different kinds of technology that we were using on homes previously, but now it's become a regular way of life. Where do I think we're going from where we were? Well, we were selling houses during the pandemic, which we weren't allowed to show, obviously. And we were showing houses virtually because people were flocking out of the city like I've never seen before, out of the boroughs. I think there were, from March to July, there were 245,000 people that changed their mailing address. I mean, that's just an incredible amount of people. Mm-hmm. And I think people were buying houses virtually, and this thing was getting worse. And it was, I think it was an experience that I've never experienced before. It was an experience that was very odd. You had to train your staff properly, where they had to abide by the guidelines and safety, of course, and educate your sellers. And it was just, and your customers and clients, obviously. It was an experience that we kind of want to forget, but we did sell a good amount of homes, which was very surprising. People were desperate. We did rent a ton of properties, as I'm sure everybody else did. And I think that this second quote unquote scare is scary. And I think it'll be different this time around. I think a lot of the people are already settled in their second home, maybe in the Hamptons or in a rental. They do want to get their kids in schools for September. I think the people that went back to the city are having trouble finding places right now. So I think once January comes, it's going to ramp up again, depending upon what happens with this second wave. And we're seeing it now. It slowed down a little bit for this month. In the beginning of the month, it's starting to pick up a little bit again, but the last 3 months have been record months. I mean, you see the numbers, they're all out all over the place in the press. And that's what it's been like. It's been nonstop, multiple bids in a certain price ranges and certain locations. The demand has been absolutely incredible. It's been hard to keep up. And now if you go from buying a house virtually, where you're sending an inspector and you can't be there really, you're showing the house online, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. You're editing the video live, with the buyer. It was very challenging, and I just hope that the second wave doesn't come. I hope they get a vaccine out. I hope people trust the vaccine, because I don't think we could really go through this again. I think it damaged the industry greatly, damaged a lot of people.
Deborah, was that your experience or?
Yes, it was our experience, very similar to Tony. We have companies that are similar. He's much larger than us, but we have similar cultures. And I think that our agents are feeling a little fatigue, but I think they also have been made better by the consumer. I think we're experiencing, that Amazon effect where the consumer wants everything to be easy. So they want to be able to go online and view a house and then decide if they want to go see it in person. The homeowners don't want people traipsing through their homes just to look, quote unquote, look. They're happy to make accommodations for people who are ready to buy. So I think it became our job to make it easy on the consumer. And the consumer demanded that from us, and they demanded us to be better. So I think in some ways this awful experience has made us better as an industry. I think we've learned to get out of our comfort zone. I think agents have learned that they're not order takers, that they have to be sharp and they have to understand what the consumer is demanding, whether that be a buyer or a seller. I agree. There was a lot of movement out of New York. I think early on there was, they were fleeing the urban markets, but we also saw a lot of movement within communities on Long Island because people weren't commuting into New York, and they perhaps had, students that were living at home or children that were, maybe out of the house and they came home again and they needed more space, and people were spending all this time together, and they started to reevaluate what their priorities were, whether that was to get a larger house or something with more privacy, or to, upscale or downsize or, move within the communities. We saw a lot of that as well. We went into this year with a fair amount of inventory. I think we'll all agree. We had a kind of a slow start to last year, and then third and fourth quarter of last year were starting to pick up, and everyone was feeling really good in January and February, and then March 14th, boom. I think we all, everyone on this call, Dennis's company as well, we all figured it out. And luckily we did have a video, and we did have a lot of 3D Matterports done, and agents were embracing technology. Now it's part of their everyday business. We have to figure out how to do closings virtually, and we've done all that. I do think it has, some sectors of the market have slowed down and others are continuing to go forward. I'm interested to see what happens next year. I think that the economist, the NAR economist, he seems pretty bullish on real estate for next year, but we'll see. It's local. But I think that the consumer made us better. I think they demanded, they needed to move, they wanted to move, and they created an urgency for us to catch up. And hopefully now we're past them and we're leading the way.
So let me just ask you, Deborah, in terms of the changes and that you all are making. So from a year ago, what's the experience of now somebody wanting to sell their home and they're coming to you? What is the difference now in expectations?
Well, I think safety is a big difference in expectation. I think that homeowners want to work with the best agents. I believe that all of our companies are experiencing, our best agents are having their best years ever, because the consumers are demanding that. That means that they have to be on top of all their tools, the virtual tools especially. So, having a video ready, being able to have an on-demand showing of a property virtually, being able to host a virtual open house, whether it be on Facebook or through Zoom or whatever platform you choose. Having good communication skills, pricing is very important. And even the financing part has become very important as the mortgage laws are changing and the banks are pulling things back, is really being on top of the transaction from the moment you meet to the moment it closes.
Dennis, is that something similar? This is in terms of the business. I know we have a staff and we have people that are involved in sales, and I never hired people as account executives, at least before, for their skills in technology. It was usually the people skills. But now the staffs are being asked to take on quite a different thing. Is that something now for your customers? What's the difference? And for your staff, what's the difference?
I think there's not a huge difference for our staff here at Compass in terms of our employees. We've always been a tech-based company. There's no secret to that. So virtually on March 13th, we all reported to work, and we were built with the systems to efficiently work virtually. Now for our agents, it was a different story. Our agents had to adapt to that. And we were new to the market on Long Island at that point. And I am incredibly impressed with the entrepreneurship savviness that I'm finding in the Long Island marketplace with our agents here. They know that you need to be tech savvy right now, especially now, to be working efficiently in this real estate market safely and to get your clients what they need quickly and efficiently. So they are adapting to the technology seamlessly, and I'm sure Deborah and Tony are seeing that as well at their firms, because to work as a successful real estate agent in this market today, you need to embrace technology fully, like we have. In terms of COVID and where COVID, I think I'm confident in New York, in greater New York. I'm confident that we're doing the right things. I think we have, unfortunately, a leg up on COVID more so than the rest of the country. We've been through so much of it, and it was the worst. And we know what we have to do. All of our companies know exactly what we have to do to effectively proceed for business as normal for our agents. And that's something that I think that, unfortunately, as I said, we had the leg up advantage there. I wish we didn't, because we wouldn't have lost so many souls in this region due to COVID. But I'm confident that New York is going to maintain a certain level of acute awareness and maturity with regards to this virus. And it will allow us to proceed somewhat normally, like we did in the early days in June. If that's as worse as it gets, as Tony said, that's going to be a great thing, because we're still going to be able to work and transact and technically support our agents virtually through technology.
Phil, how about yourself? Now, we have 3 people on our panel that work for large organizations that may have, in some cases, already made the investment in technology. How about yourself? You are an independent operator.
Right.
Were you ready? I know I speak to you and you tell me you are always giving me recommendations but do you feel that you were as prepared as you would have liked to have been? And if not, how has that changed in terms of how you're doing business?
I've been prepared for 69 years because I don't wait till something happens. Some people watch it happen. Some people think it's going to happen. Small percentage of us make it happen. So what I did in January and December, I basically reached out to a lot of different vendors, not even knowing whether this was going to hit as hard as it was. But I knew in December something was going on in China, because I have a number of investors there and a number of clients. And they told me something's going on in Wuhan. I said, what are you talking about? Nah, there's something going on. So I kind of knew something was happening. Unfortunately, Peter Navarro told Trump this several times, and obviously nothing occurred until he shut down China. But anyway, so I reached out to some of these vendors and I figured out the best way to handle this if this weren't going to happen. I said, the best thing is I'm not going to go solicit people. If the worst case scenario happens, which it did, I said, I'm just going to stay in touch with people. So what we did was we basically started to drip on people when this happened and before it happened. And then we changed our messages after it happened by putting little messages in. How you doing? How's your family? We talked zero about real estate. We didn't utter a word of real estate because that's not what it was about. That wasn't the time for us to make a lot of money. And unfortunately, there were still people knocking on doors and doing things that I would never do in my lifetime. It's like people who send bereavement cards to people who die. And it's unheard of, but this is what some people do in our industry. So I was very much prepared, and I kind of pivoted before Tom Tom Ferry told me about it. Brian Buffini, Daryl Davis, Joe Stump, all the guys I've trained with. They said, you're doing the right things. I said, well, why doesn't everybody do it? He said, because it's all about the money. That's the where it's always been about it in the human race. It's all about the money, not about people, not about paying it forward. So I was prepared.
Now, let me ask you, and I'll, we can, we'll start with Deborah this round. Are you seeing a difference in the marketplace in terms of geography, value of homes, type of housing, such as condos and co-ops and homes? Is there a differentiation here between all these categories?
I definitely think so. I don't know if I can point 100% of that to COVID or COVID during a time that we have very low interest rates and very low inventory. So, and that along with COVID created quite a frenzy. And I agree with Phil that it's important that you work and many of things that Phil said are things that we do. We're a ninja company, so we do stay in touch with our customers and clients, and we care very much about them. And that's why all of us are successful, because people don't work with people they don't trust and like. But I will say that as the year went on and the inventory didn't really come on, much of it because of COVID, people held back. They were afraid to have people in their homes. The demand was greater than we could really meet. So it did drive prices up, and the average sales price is up more so in Suffolk than it is in Nassau, but it's up quite a bit in both counties. Queens suffered a little bit more because it had New York City and it was shut down for that much longer. The thirst for the high end is something that I really haven't seen in years. And we went through many years of talking about, are the 2-acre red brick colonials in the Brookvilles going to sell because there's hundreds of them on the market? Well, yeah, they all came back because people wanted more, as I said earlier, more privacy, and they wanted bigger homes to accommodate, the people that were living with them and working with them and within their immediate family. The average price on Long Island is quite high. I don't know what will happen next year when unemployment hits and the benefits stop. I think we'll see that there's a certain segment of the market that will not be able to go from being a renter to a purchaser, but that's left to be seen. Condos and co-ops, I know maybe Tony can speak to that a little bit better than I can. We're really more focused on single family homes, but our average sales price is the highest it's ever been. So that tells me that the luxury market has really been very healthy on Long Island this year, as well as other parts of the market. But I think the big difference has been in the luxury market.
Okay, Dennis, are you seeing a differentiation, or are you you're selling those other products as well?
Yes, we are. We're finding that across the board. As we said, yeah, there was a significant movement. As Deborah said, there was significant movement within the marketplace, not just what has come out of the 5 boroughs and out of New York City to Long Island. We are seeing that there's, this pause, this any dramatic or traumatic event causes its shift in desirabilities, and therefore it creates change within the market. So we are seeing a lot of movement of smaller properties, condos and co-ops, as well as our listings under $1 million are flying off the shelves. Our price points are higher. Of course, we are comparing this to all your price points from last year, because we weren't in the market last year. But we are finding that since we've been here in 8 months, things have quieted a bit in terms of the inventory. And, just recently, I've spoken to 2 or 3 of our agents who specialize in the luxury product. And we've noticed in the past month that there has been an uptick in movement in that product versus what we were seeing in August and September.
Tony, same, is that what you're seeing as well?
So I agree with both with Deborah and Dennis. Of course, we're entrenched in the high end as well, and we've seen homes that have languished on the market all of a sudden have multiple offers. simply because a family is coming from wherever, maybe they're in vertical living and they want that space, they want that pool, they want that ability to have their privacy. And we started seeing these properties move, and price is a big part of it. Um, I think that across the board, as Dennis said, we're seeing a big uptick in a lot of these properties moving. But I think the local buyer has a big problem right now, because most of the time, the local buyer's issue was that, if they're upticking, they're having trouble finding something. So, because inventory levels are just challenging. And then there are a lot of people that are on the fence about putting their house on the market. Once they've seen how the market has performed, then they said, hon, maybe we should put it on now instead of waiting a year. Maybe they were 10 months out from retirement and said, look, we'll cash in now while the market's, peaking, and, get into a rental. So we've seen all different kinds of scenarios, but I think Deborah made a very interesting point earlier where, it's all about the consumer. And I think the consumer was demanding a lot of things that were not readily available. I think if you have inventory right now, you're golden. And, that's the biggest problem in the marketplace right now is inventory. And, Dennis also brought up a very good point about that lower tier market where, I heard a story yesterday. Somebody called me and said, hey, Tony, listen, I've put offers on 10 or 11 houses and I haven't even come in third or fourth place. I mean, you're talking about 10, 15, 20 offers on these properties, which I've never seen in my career. I know 15 years ago, we've had 40, 50 people at an open house and we had a lot of crazy activity with offers. But what's going on right now is just, it's unmatched. I've never seen it before. And I think it was a very good point that, it's all about the inventory right now. And what's going to happen after the first of the year is going to depend on what happens with this virus. I truly believe that 2021 could be a banner year. It could be another third and fourth quarter situation like we've had over the last couple months. Agents have been working very hard. I mean, there are agents that we didn't work for 3 months, and agents that were so behind on their gross commissions that have made up the difference in those months.
Right.
And it's just incredible.
I think also the agent has a certain amount of fatigue also, and I think the gentleman will also agree with me. There's so much involved in physically showing a house now. There's, in New York State, there's so many more disclosures that have to be signed, COVID disclosures, wiping down a house, having the house be sanitized before the buyer comes in, sanitizing the house after the buyer leaves. So there's so much more that goes into actually even just showing a property now, let alone having a property where you might put it on the market on Friday and by Saturday at noon, you've got 12 offers, and there's so much pent up demand and frustration on the part of both the buyer and the seller because they're getting into these, crazy bidding wars. And then we have sellers who put their houses on the market and they get these crazy bidding wars, and then they freak out and they take their house off the market because they have nowhere to go.
That's right.
So it's all happening. I feel for every salesperson out there because they are really doing their best.
And then, Deborah, you have the agent who puts something on the market and there is no bidding war. And then that's
that too.
Yeah.
that expectation.
They want to know
We all have
why.
We all have that, don't we?
Good point, Dennis.
Hotels, plenty of them.
Is there any, Bill, is there any concern because there hasn't been with Congress that second stimulus bill that everyone is waiting for?
I
I know that we're on the North Shore and we're not in the same situation as some other areas, but there's concerns about major cutbacks to the Long Island Railroad. They're talking about the Long Island Railroad and the subway will cut back unless there's money. There would be the loss of jobs. The governor has said he'll have to cut back money to school districts and local people. So we'll lose teachers and firemen and people, ambulance. Unemployment runs out at the end of the year. There has been a moratorium on foreclosures.
Short sales.
Is this a concern that, where there'll be a large supply coming on the market as a result of the impact here if things aren't, unless there's some help coming from Washington to bail people out? Bill? Sounds like a column for you.
Yeah, well, you saw my column that's going in this week. No, I think there's a huge concern, and I think unfortunately, I'm the most optimistic person you'll ever meet in this world. However, I'm not controlling the government, and we're just a little cog in the wheel. And the problem is, all these people that are on, I think there's going to be about 20 million people long-term unemployed. So if you take all these hospital people, all the hotel and the airlines, and those are potential buyers, but what about their bosses, the owners? If they can't make any money, they're not going to invest. They may end up losing their houses. I know somebody that owns 7 restaurants in the city. He has only 1 open right now, multimillionaire, but his money is going very quick. And he personally signed on the leases, which I told him not to. He doesn't even have a good guy clause. So the concern is, I think we're just at the beginning. And I don't think a lot of people will be taking this vaccine. So I think if they don't put out the stimulus package, which, unfortunately, there are people that believe that we shouldn't do it. I mean, Mr. Wonderful on Shark Tank, he told me they should never do another stimulus package. He feels that we're printing way too much money, we're diluting the currency, and we're going to have hyperinflation. So I think the worst is yet to come, unless people wake up and smell the coffee, because there's going to be more unemployed people, not less. The only people making money is the Dow and the S&P and whoever is investing in the market. The rest of the population is suffering, and we don't even know about it. Most people think it's a great neck, it's a bubble world. We're all living in this wonderful. No, that's not the way it really is. Absolutely. My daughter works for LinkedIn, my daughter works for Google, and her sister works at Facebook. They're making a fortune. They're working at home. They're saving all that money for transportation. But what about the other 70%? They need that money. And Congress better do, and Mitch McConnell better wake up and smell the coffee. He really should. That's all.
Is this also a situation, I'm just curious, does this help Long Island? Is Long Island a beneficiary because people are not going to want to be in urban areas, New York City? They just closed the schools. The schools are open on Long Island. Does that then change and now I want a bigger, or if I'm living here, do I now maybe want a bigger home because the kids were growing up and I decided to downsize because, hey, they're going to be off on their own. Little did I know they're going to be moving back home. And now things are getting cramped. So is this something that is a temporary thing, or is this something that, is there something here where people are going to rethink New York City, living in the city, and move out to Long Island, or is this just a temporary trend?
No, I think this is a long-term thing. I think, well, I mean, based on what Anthony said, from my research, over 400,000 people have left New York City since March. Most of them probably have the money, but what's left there are the people that really can't afford to move. So I don't see the infection rate getting lower. I see those people doing all the things, lack of education, lack of wearing masks. I think it's going to get much worse in the city. And that's why they're closing the schools down. I mean, that's where my grandkids are. They're in the city, in Bayside, in Dumbo, whatever. So the thing is, I think people who are smart will upgrade, get a better price this winter when it snows, which is when I buy my investment property. I don't go out any other time, but the snowfall, because nobody else is. I watch the crowd and I do the opposite. So the point is, yeah, it's going to get much worse. And I think people who are smart will put their house in the market so we all have inventory, and they'll upgrade to the houses that are not selling, the $3 and $4 and $6 and $8 million houses, so they can take their in-laws in, their grandma, their grandpa, and it'll be a better market. I mean, it's sad that all these people have passed away, but I think for us, for the 5 or 10%, it's a phenomenal market. It's never been this good. And it's sad to say that, but it's true. It's true.
Deborah and I saw Deborah and Dennis shaking their heads the other way, that they didn't think that this is going to be, at least, I mean, there is the next 6 months, a year, and then there's down the road. So I guess you could say you could divide that up. But Deborah, what's your take on, is this going to be a different market for the next 6 years? Is it going to be for the next 3 years and 4 years beyond?
Well, if I knew the answer to that, Steve, I wouldn't be on this webinar tonight. But, I don't think New York.
People were counting are on this call to get
Yeah.
that information and
Uh-huh.
make their investment choices.
I don't think New York will ever die. I go with Jerry Seinfeld when it comes to that, but I do think that it is going to take a major pause. I think we're already seeing that, but I do think that we have we all have friends in the city that are brokers, and they're telling us that they're busy again. So I don't think they're rushing back in, but there's a lot of people that are interested in being in New York, and they'll find a way to do it safely. I also think we have seen a lot of activity in the $3, $6, $9 million range on Long Island this year. So I think that's already started to happen. I think the reason that that's happening is that people are taking advantage of correct pricing, realistic pricing, and low rates. And it's a good place to park your money. So I think all of those things, Long Island definitely has benefited from that. But when we wake up from the hangover, I'm not sure what it's going to look like, or the MTA or the Long Island Railroad or any of that. And I do think that we have an opportunity in 2021 to continue with the momentum that we have now, as long as people who have a home to sell have a place to go. I think that is one of our biggest challenges. Dennis, you were shaking your head too. What do you think?
Yeah, I have, Deborah, I have full confidence in New York. I'm a New Yorker, but at the same perspective, I'm sitting in a house on Long Island that I bought within the past 4 months. So I'm one of those New Yorkers who moved from Brooklyn to Long Island. I have the great fortune of also part of my job is overseeing, being managing director is also including our 7 offices in Brooklyn and Queens. And I can tell you, New York did suffer tremendously. The further east we got out of Midtown Manhattan, things got better, all the way to the Hamptons. But I can tell you that we have seen a very successful fall. My city agents are busy. We've had transactions upwards of townhouses in Brooklyn selling $6 to $12 million. We have contracts of large apartments and penthouses in New York at Compass coming into contract now at over $20 million. This is going to affect the market throughout the greater New York region. We're very fortunate for the Long Island market, who carried us through a period where we had zero revenue in our Manhattan market and our northern New Jersey and Connecticut and Westchester markets, as well as the Hamptons. But I do have confidence in New York. And I also think that we're all going to have just the right ingredients for a really great end of 2021. And that's my hope. I think we have low interest rates. I believe in a stimulus package that's going to happen. I think we're going to have a vaccine. I think it's going to, we're still going to have movement. We're going to be closed up again, and then there's going to be a release again, and there's going to be all that pent up movement, desire of movement. But most importantly, I believe in human nature, that when we come out of this, just like whenever we've come out of anything severe like this, there is a resilience to bounce back with passion. And I think that that's really going to happen throughout all of our markets in the region.
All right, Tony, you can, you're the final word. You can make this a tie, or we can decide this question for good. What does the near term and long term look like for Long Island?
So, obviously, we have a large presence in the city and in the boroughs, and I'm receiving the same information from the agents that I know in the city. But what's interesting? The people that fled the city that owned a second home in the Hamptons or on the North Fork knew that they can stay there and they're safe for the time being. So for now, they're feeling, okay, this is going to be a situation where, we'll ride it out. They registered their kids in either public schools or private schools, which there aren't many out east, but there are a few. And those people, for the most part, are just riding it out right now. The people that were renting that had to come back to the city, which, I kind of find interesting, those seemed like through interviews, a lot of those people that were coming into our marketplace that were looking to purchase, and a lot of them still didn't find homes. It is very true that the city is picking up. I had a conversation with an agent yesterday who told me about an $8.5 million deal. Most of the deals, though, that are going on right now are under $3 million. That's just my experience. And I think what ends up happening is that those people are not, in my opinion, going to stay out east forever. And I don't think that. I mean, the city's obviously going to recoup, but this is different than 9/11. I mean, you have a shootings up 94% over 2019. People are nervous about crime. They're nervous about economic woes, and they're nervous about the schools, and obviously they're nervous about the virus. So, now you're seeing numbers tick up out east. So I think, there's a lot of factors when we're predicting what's going to happen going forward. And as Deborah said before, we wouldn't be on this call if we really had a crystal ball.
Can I say
But
something?
if we can get this virus under control, which I believe we can, I think that there's been a lot of good. Unfortunately, a lot of people lost their lives and a lot of people were hurt by this virus. But I think there's been a lot of good from people helping people. And I think that if we can get this virus under control, we'll see a good market in 2021. But there is what Phil mentioned before. Another very good point is, a lot of people are out of work right now. And, those people we're finding that are selling are going out of state. They're going to an economy that they can afford, whether it be the Carolinas or Florida. I mean, we had more referrals this year going down south than we did in the last 3 years combined. So I think a lot of those people that can't afford to stay here are saying, hey, the market's peaking right now, I have some equity in my home. I can go to Tennessee, and buy something cash with the equity that I have. And it'll be a little easier for them. And a lot of those people, their kids are already grown and established, the ones that have younger children, we're seeing them leave too. So I think that if we get this virus under control and we can stabilize, the government. We don't even know who the president is right now. I mean, they declared a winner, but we really don't know for sure. And I think there's a lot of factors that are weighing into this. And I think that the virus, though, is going to be the main culprit that's going to dictate, because if they shut us down again, I mean, look, we all know people that have lost businesses. Phil said he knows somebody has 7 restaurants in the city and only one's open. Well, I have a similar situation where I have a friend who was very successful in the restaurant business, and he just went bankrupt. So, and you're talking very successful, named places that, you can't get in, you couldn't get in 6 months ago, 10 months ago, you couldn't get into these places. So that's where I think it's going to go next year. If we can get this under control and the chips fall in the right place. But there is that economic portion of it that is a concern. And as Deborah said before, interest rates are low. The Fed says they're going to keep the discount rate at 0 to 2023. That's definitely going to help. But, then again, a lot more people can jump into the market, but they can't find anything, and then we're seeing stuff sell way over asking, and you have appraisal issues. I mean, it's a lot of things are compounded by what's going on right now, by this crazy marketplace.
Steve,
We're also seeing a pullback in the mortgage business. I think we're seeing that the lenders are starting to, require updates while people are in contract, and a lot more documentation, and they're tightening their belts. So
Appraisals, yeah.
Everything is they're making it tougher for everybody. So I think, when the banks are nervous, it makes us all a little nervous.
But the bulk of the market is not the $20 million customer. The bulk of the market are the people that are unemployed, a lot of them. And they're leaving New York in droves.
Very true, Phil.
That's true.
Plan about creating jobs, and it's 10-year no tax, total failure. Hundreds of millions of dollars of advertising down the drain. People are leaving and they're not coming back. I was born in the Bronx, or actually Whitestone, and I've lived in Great for 65 years. I see what's going on, and people are leaving and they're not coming back. The elitists who are in the city, who moved out to the island, they'll come back, but that's not going to bring back the city. We have to bring people in from the outside. And the only way to do that, tax deductions, plans, grants, and they're not even talking about that. If they get this under control, they'll be lucky. And again, I'm an optimist. The problem is the bulk of the people that are
Doing
unemployed.
a good imitation of being a pessimist, Phil.
What'd you say?
You're doing a good imitation of being a pessimist. Or an optimist.
You got to get these people back working. If they come back working, they can buy the co-ops and the condos and even the houses, because they move from co-op to condo to a house, or condo to a house. Or you got to get these people employed. And the only way to do that, roads, bridges, tunnels, and high-speed rail. Get the government to give grant money out and educate these people so they'll make $50 to $100 an hour. $15 an hour, we're not working with those people, maybe for a rental. So you got to get people working, and that's the only way it's going to happen. I guarantee it. And it's sitting mothballed. High-speed rail, Brazil and China are so far ahead of us, but we got high-speed rail in 4 zones. We got bridges and tunnels, thousands going down the drain. That's where the money needs to go. Education, get the people that are unemployed who are capable, get them working, and then the economy will go back much farther than even when Obama was in office. Because I don't know what Trump's done, but I can tell you that it'll get better.
You know, Steve, can I just say one thing, make a comment? Phil is a good point there, but we're seeing, and I'm sure Deborah and Dennis are experiencing the same thing. We're seeing buyers that own multiple properties purchasing $3, $4, $5 million properties, either in the Brookvilles or wherever, Old Westbury. Maybe that $5 million property at one time was at $8 million. It just didn't sell for the last 5 years. Now it's trading at $5 million. The mentality is I'm getting a $7, $8 million house for $5 million at a discount. A lot of these people are jumping into the marketplace. And these are actual interviews when we do an exit interview with somebody and just ask them a few questions just for data. It's interesting how a lot of people are suffering, but a lot of people are doing very well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Deborah can tell us some stories also. I'm sure she has many of them where, buyer goes and sees the house for the first time, doesn't even bring his wife, full price offer, all cash. They want to close in 30 days. And that's it. It's done. And
We're seeing them sight unseen. They're coming.
Exactly.
We sold a property last week, a multi-million-dollar property to a buyer from California, sight unseen. He saw it. He saw it was a new property. He said, well, how bad can it be? It's 3 years old. Sight unseen. I think it was 4.5, almost $5 million. That's a lot of dough to not see it. But
I
Phil,
agree.
just to address your comment, because I think it's an important comment. But when we had the financial crisis, Miami was in a place where it was building. They had all these new developments, all these high-rise buildings, and they were empty. And everyone thought Miami was going to fall off the tip of Florida because it was so bad there. And the roads were so bad and nobody had a job. And they had all these people that were unemployed. And Miami's come back, and it's come back stronger than ever. And I don't think New York would be any different. I don't disagree that we're going to go through a very hard time and that there are a lot of people that are going to go through a hard time. But I think it's New York. We're going to be fine. It may take some time, but we'll get there. A lot of it does depend on the packages that we get. I agree. But I think we're all of us on this call should be in a position of optimism more so than pessimism.
I'll tell you too, the buyers that we're seeing, and I'm sure Tony can attest to this with his exit interviews. We have an ability through some of our technology. We have a tool called Collections, which involves the buyer in their search with the agent. With that collection, we can measure where these buyers are looking. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to see that a buyer looking in Old Westbury or Mill Neck is also looking in Greenwich, Connecticut at our listings, as well as up in Bedford or Salem or Northern New Jersey. So that's the mentality of the buyer. It's not necessarily someone who's known Long Island forever. We do have those as well, but we're getting people who are coming from the city, and all they know is that they want to live 45 minutes away from the city in a nice suburb. And they may be from Philadelphia or California, and they have money, and they're just open to everything. And it's very frustrating for our agents because one weekend they're out looking all over the North Shore, and they said, can you come out next weekend to look? And they say, oh no, we're going up to Connecticut next weekend.
Yeah.
It's a reality.
We had the same thing with Old Greenwich. Old Greenwich, you could buy a $3 million house and the taxes are 12 or 15,000. It's funny how the Long Island buyer will also choose Westchester and even parts of Jersey because the schools are pretty much level. The taxes are close. The commute is close, Metro North versus Long Island Railroad if they're going to commute into the city. It's a very good point, Dennis, because we're seeing the same exact thing. And we do a lot of cross networking with our Westchester offices for that reason, because the same exact thing happens. One day they're looking all over the Brookvilles, Old Westbury, Laddingtown, and then, they're up in Scarsdale looking or in Mamaroneck, the following week. So it's a very good point.
Agents are making a ton of money off referrals in this market.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
But keep in mind, this is not the market. It's your guys, your ladies and gentlemen. That's your market. That doesn't make our economy. Sorry to say. The economy is based on putting people back to work so those people can buy their entry-level houses, their co-ops and condos. So we're all making money. I'm doing the best I've ever done in my life. However, that's not the market. That's not the market. The market is putting all these 20 million people back to work. Steve, one thing, do you have an ID and passcode? Because I got hundreds of people that are texting me. They want to get in, but they don't know what to do.
Rob, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I can put the Zoom link in the Q&A section right here.
Can you just put it on the islandnow.com? Because that's where I've been sending everybody, and they say there's no link.
If they go to the islandnow.com homepage on the right, if they scroll down one or two little scrolls, you'll see the buying and selling a home on Long Island during COVID-19. You just click on that box and it'll launch Zoom for you.
Yeah, that's why they didn't see it, because they got to scroll down. You're asking for too much for people.
It should be that first little cube on the right-hand side of our
It's
featured
that
store.
guy used to Amazon. We have to improve our customer service.
You have to make it easy.
Yes, that is correct. No frictionless buying and entry. One thing that I wanted to just say, if there are people who are watching who have questions, please submit your questions. We'll try to get to them as we go on. So submit your questions and we'll try to get them in. Let me ask, so I'm going to be on the optimistic side. Call me crazy. And I want to go and I want to buy a home now. So what is that experience? We're talking about banks now. What should I prepare myself for if I am a home buyer, which I could also be a homeowner and looking to trade up. So it's both ends, but what am I going to, what can I expect in terms of money that I need? What do I need to prepare for? Has that changed? I bought a home 5 years ago. Is this going to be the same experience? Dennis, I'll let you start off.
The first thing I would say in this market is you need a broker. You need an agent to work with you in your search. And I think that it's such a quick market with the limited inventory. It's good to have someone who knows the market well. Also, I think you need to have everything aligned and in order to move fast. You know, if you're up against these bidding wars and these multiple offers coming in, before you go out looking, you should have your pre-approval letter. You should have everything sorted. You should have your attorney lined up. A good agent should have your engineer inspection lined up. So upon accepted offer, you could be in there the next morning. In a competitive market, it's not always the highest number that wins, as we know. It's the strongest bid. So you need to show that you have what it takes to win the bid. And I think aligning yourself with a good agent who is going to prep you in that regard is the way to go.
You know, Steve, it's a strategy, right? So you want to, the buyer has to be as strong as possible. Even submitting all your documentation to the bank and getting a good approval letter. You know, Chase is issuing these almost like pre-commitments, or they call it a loan approval. It's contingent upon, you know, an appraisal and a valid contract. But if you're not strong, you're not even coming close. Your terms have to be as strong as they can possibly be. Down payment, you know, obviously, again, as Dennis mentioned, your approval letter. The strength is coming from the terms, and it's like a strategy right now. It's almost like playing a game. You know, you have to bring your people in as strong as possible. And that's really how it has to be. And we've been having the most success in the lower price points because you're bidding against so many people. I told you that the gentleman that had called me, who was a friend, had told me that he lost out on 11 or 12 homes, and not one of the agents, which I couldn't believe, not one of the agents really explained to him what the strategy was going to be. You have to have a strategy today. If you don't have a strategy,
Exactly.
you're not going to win many times.
Tony's absolutely right. And on the seller side, the seller has to have a strategy as well. So the seller would be wise to make sure that they've got all their certificates of occupancy in place. It's a very good suggestion. They also have to hire a very good, seasoned, experienced agent who understands the nuances of how to sell a home in this environment. They should have an inspection done on their home so that they can foresee what the buyer is going to come in, because You don't want anyone to come in and have this multiple bid situation happen and then have a buyer come in and do an inspection and say, forget it and walk away, because then you've made everybody angry. And you could have 5 people today and have nobody tomorrow. So the sellers have to be very, very well prepared as well. And they have to sit down with their agent, and the agent has to explain the situation and the market and what the environment is and what's going to happen, and take them from day one to the day that it closes. And the agent has to stay on top of the attorney, the appraisal, the title company, everything until it closes, because in this market, anything can happen.
Right.
Absolutely.
So how do I know I have the right agent? When I'm selecting an agent,
Mhm.
everyone seems to agree that the agent is this crucial person in this and is going to help shepherd me through. How do I know that I've got the right agent?
Call Phil.
Perfect. Oh, Phil.
Let me answer that. Most important thing, not enlisting a company. You're enlisting a qualified superior agent. A company has relatively nothing to do with it, because the internet has leveled the playing field. As long as you know what you're doing on the internet, you know technology, it's not about the company, it's about the person who's helping you find that buyer, not selling vanilla when they want to buy chocolate. That's what most agents do. They're always selling. They're not consulting. They're not guiding them through the process of this most arduous, difficult, complicated business, especially today. So if you're busy selling, you keep doing the same
But
thing.
how do I know this going in? I mean, everyone
Well,
tells
it's
me.
about establishing
That's why
relationships.
you call me.
It's about establishing relationships. I think that when you gain somebody's trust, whether it's a buyer or seller, and Deborah summed it up, when you gain somebody's trust and you have their best interest, if you're representing them, they're going to know. And I think that it's very important that an agent does that in today's market, because, I'll have an agent come into my office and say, hey, Tony, can I talk to you for a minute? I'm having trouble retaining these people. They're going to work with other agents, and I have to go through the whole gambit on what they're doing, and maybe just kind of adjust them a little bit and say, hey, look, you need to gain trust. Maybe you're being a little timid, maybe you're not being aggressive enough. When people work with people, they know whether or not they're going to be a good fit. And they know right away, because how you act, you're being judged every minute, especially how you show a property, how you negotiate for somebody. Sometimes buyers get a little frustrated if they lose a house or two, and they blame the agent, which is normal. But you're seeing that, especially in this marketplace. But I think that you have to establish a relationship, and it's very important. And you have to conduct business in an ethical manner, and you have to be honest, because if you're going to start making misrepresentations and not be truthful to somebody, not only you're going to get a lawsuit, but you're not going to retain many customers.
And from the onset, I think you need to show your value. You need to show that you're the professional here and they're coming to you, and what you can offer them as a professional that they're not going to get by going to the websites, as Phil said. You need to show them that you're not only a local expert in the market that they want to be in, and show them which restaurants they should be going to, and the schools and the experiences their kids may have in these schools, or what country club is right nearby, and all these things matter. But it's also that you can show them you have the professional expertise. You can show them what you've done, and you could show them right off the bat, do you have a real estate attorney? Here are 3 or 4 real estate attorneys I work with that I want you to call. Do you have the engineer inspection? Have you gotten your finances straight and in order? Do you have a mortgage broker or a banker? I want you to work with these people. These are trusted vendors that I recommend to other successful transactions I've closed. If you show them that right off the bat, they're going to be wowed by you. And then it's going to naturally happen that you're going to be in a secure relationship with them, despite the ebbs and flows of the market.
Let me interject. That's the last thing you're going to tell them, because if you don't build the rapport from that first 5 seconds of a phone call, I don't care how many attorneys you have and house inspectors, it means nothing. They want to know, can they fit with you and you can fit with them? And in order for you to accomplish that, you got to be persistently nice. You can't jam stuff down their throat. And this is what I see all the time, not in my office, because it's my way or the highway. I'm Freddy Krueger. If you can't do it that way, don't work with me. You got to be able to be nice. And once you develop that little spark, then all the other information that Tony and Dennis and Deborah are explaining, most important. But if you don't get your foot in that door by really being nice and professional and an expert at what you do, they're just going to go to the next agent. If you don't pick up your phone in 5 seconds today, you're done. That's why Zillow changed their parameters. Spencer Raskoff told me, we got to change that. Why? It's working. No, because all the bad agents are not getting the calls. I said, no, they're picking up in a day and a week. That's why they're not getting the leads. So I left Zillow 2.5 years ago. Well, actually, 2 years and 3 days ago, I left Zillow because it's a waste of money. It's about picking up the phone and developing that rapport and relationship. That's
So-
where it starts.
Let me throw out a question. We have a question from one of our attendees. Are you people working in, or any of you working in commercial real estate? Your offices are doing that. What is the experience in commercial real estate out here? And I guess this is tied, we'll ask commercial real estate, and we'll also ask, are people now factoring in working from home and how big a home that they're looking for? Do they see that as the future?
I think
Absolutely.
some industries absolutely see that as the future.
Absolutely.
I think that we have a separate commercial company here, so we don't necessarily combine commercial and residential. What I'm hearing from our commercial company is that there is a lot of movement, mostly interest in doctors, healthcare, and some warehousing is very big right now, and storage and things like that. Do we see a lot of retail space going? No, that's suffering, I would say.
Okay, anyone else, your experience?
I agree full-heartedly with Deb there across the board with regards to the commercial. I will tell you, home office, you just said that. I mean, we've done some research that shows that the term home office is regularly Googled now.
Yeah.
Like, 5 months ago, it was swimming pool. Everyone wanted a pool when they were stuck at home. Now we're still seeing that. If you have the opportunity in your listing to market a home office and you're not doing it, that's a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Because Google technology is bringing consumers to listings that have home office in the description.
Become a keyword. Very good point, Dennis. Become a keyword.
Yep.
Great point. Especially on an organic Google search too. It's amazing.
Mhm.
What I've learned is that you have to have an office at home now. Now, years ago, by default, there was an office, so you had a home office. But now we're seeing homes, even some new construction homes, specifically being built with an office, which is pretty cool. It really is. And we're talking about upwards, over the $3 million range. We're seeing some amazing new construction homes that are being built and they're selling. There's a lot of building going on. And, I shake my head sometimes. A lot of these builders were sitting on these pieces of property. And why during COVID have they decided to build? Well, they've decided to build because of the demand. And it's been very interesting to see how a home office has evolved as a necessity in a home, or in a buyer's criteria. Has to have a home office. It used to be a basement, used to be a garage, used to be a pool. Those things they could put a pool in, but has to have a home office.
Are people getting additional bedrooms? I was going to get a 3-bedroom, but now I'm going to get that 4th bedroom and I'm going to make that my office.
Sure, why not?
But it has to be separated from where the children are going to school online. So they have to have a wall up. Otherwise, I'm going to disturb, if I had kids anymore or whatever, I would be disturbing them. So there has to be a partition wall in order for both people to actually work simultaneously.
Everyone has mentioned, and maybe I'd like to drill down a little bit more on this, because we're mentioning technology. What are we referring to when we're talking about technology? How technical are we getting? What has this industry become? You mentioned, you're selling its keywords, so now you're in Google terminology in terms of matching people. You're seeing where people are looking. in
Mhm.
other places. This is something different that you're learning. So tell me what I know that I know that technology, that was the big claim when Compass got started. That was the idea behind it. Now I think maybe everybody is doing that by necessity. But tell me what technology we're talking about. And is there any, what is that role of technology and how is it used by your offices?
Well, I
I
think
think
the
we-
company uses technology, right? And then the agents use technology. So,
So
we
It
want
runs the gamut. It runs the gamut from this Zoom call,
Yeah.
right? From the basic Zoom call to search engine optimization, as we were talking about, which is the Google word searching home office. I think that the industry has really changed with regards to technology, and I'm very fortunate that Compass is one of the leaders in that. We have an incredible platform that's offered to our agents that, as I mentioned, collections, which involves the consumer actually working with the agent in choosing the listings they want to see. It's almost like a Pinterest platform. We've developed our own in-house CRM, which is a contact relationship management system, which is essential in real estate nowadays. We have an incredible CMA, which is a comps report in-house that involves artificial intelligence, which will help with differentiations between the products that we're comparing in the comps report. And then down to, as I said, to a Zoom call. I mean, we were effectively doing this at Compass for years, where our sales meetings were always streamed live, because we understand that agents were running around or on appointments or doing things. Now I love it. I love when I'm in a sales call and half the people you're in their cup holder in their car, because they're out running around, or they're staging the house while you're talking to them about stats and numbers, or they're out. I've actually had buyers listening in on sales calls in cars because they're with the agent in the car when it wasn't COVID. So, adapting to this technology, offering it to our agents and our consumers has made our agents be able to work more and more efficiently, ultimately allowing them to make more money.
I agree with Dennis. I mean, with all due respect, I would have to say that both Tony and my company have some serious technology available to our agents too. Compass does a very good job of marketing theirs. But I think it's very important. I mean, we all have analytics available to us, and we can predict where people are going and where they're coming from and how much they're going to spend and how much they have in the bank and where their cousin lives and the rest of it. But it is a people business. And I think when you look at it overall, I think it's our responsibility as companies to provide the tools to make our agents successful and to make them to work smarter and to be more efficient. But it's from an agent perspective. I mean, there's so much that they can do right from this phone. I mean, they can really run their whole business from their phone. They can do video of a home from their phone. They can stream it to a consumer. They have their customer relationship management on the phone. They can everything is just a touch away. And that's what technology has brought to our business, but it hasn't changed the fact that we have to have a relationship, right? So all we can do is expose the buyers and the sellers to all this information and then deliver the best agent possible to really have the relationship with them.
What about
You
to
hit
me
the
as a
nail right on the head.
consumer? Tony, if I am, what's in it for me? As
A lot
the,
of money.
I'm happy that the agents are doing very well, but my question as the person buying the home is, how is this going to impact me? Is it going to make me sell it better? Am I going to be better informed? What is it from that end, from the buyer or seller's end?
Well, it's
From
about
a buyer's perspective, you're going to be involved with this technology. We have incorporated use for you to tools and platforms for you to be involved in the active search. It's all about speed right now. And then from the seller's perspective, we need to get the buyer's eyes to your listings the most possible way. Technology is ever changing. Whatever we roll out today, technology-wise, has been replaced already. That's why we have at Compass 551 engineers in-house at 14th Street and 5th Avenue in our building on 3 floors who are every day building technology to improve and roll out to the agencies. We've decided to bring that in-house and not rely on third-party vendors because we know we have to be on top of it to offer the best to the agents. And I'll add, the technology we are rolling out and offering to our agents also, the co-brokes benefit from it as well. You know, this is something that we're rolling out and offering to the marketplace to elevate the market from a technology perspective.
Phil, so how many floors do you have of technology people?
How many floors do you want?
How does, you know, this goes to a question, because we do have representatives of 3 very substantial companies.
I'm David, they're Goliath. What can I tell you? But who won that war? David.
Okay, well, how do you compete with that, Phil?
It's very simple. I think Dennis has a great point. Deborah, Tony, excellent points. And I'm actually learning something. And I like to do that every day until I'm looking at wood and there's no more pulse. So the point is the technology gets you to the customer, but it's still a one-on-one business. It's still a local business. What you do on the phone is more important than all the technology you have. You first have to connect with them, obviously. But once you get them on the phone, are your agents trained? Do they know what to say? Do they know how to build the rapport and long-term relationships? So technology is great. I can have a Ferrari, but if it ain't tuned, it ain't going anywhere.
That's right.
So everything they're saying is absolutely 150% accurate, but the missing link, you gotta develop rapport and relationships. That's the way it's always been. It's not about the money, because listen, the icing on the cake is when I go to a closing and I get a $50,000 check, that's great, wonderful, because I did my job. You have to lead up to that. There's a lot of processes in doing that.
I'm happy for you, Phil.
Thanks.
But again, my question comes, what about me? I'm the buyer or seller.
Right.
And how does that work for me, that when you say people are knowledgeable, what is it that, if I'm talking to somebody, what should they be asking me? What questions should they be asking me so that I know that you are going to represent me well?
Okay, that's a very good point, a good question. They should be asking me, first of all, I have to ask them and I have to qualify them. That's more important. Then they can ask me questions because I have to hear what is it that they need and want. Needs are your budget, wants are your champagne taste and beer pockets, as the rich and famous used to say. May he rest in peace. But the point is that you have to qualify them so you know that you have a picture painted of exactly who that person is and whether you want to deal with them or not. Is their credit proper? Is their debt to income ratio qualified enough? Do they have enough money to put down? You know, when did they want to move? Now, later? So the questions they're going to ask me is, can you find me the right house based on what I've qualified them for? So it's important for us to qualify them first. Then they have to ask us questions because I need to know who they are. So right off the bat, I'm going to ask them, do you want to buy a house, condo? They say, I want to buy a property in Great Neck. Oh, that's great. Okay, what type of property? What style? What is it that you don't like about whatever you've looked at? Are there any houses that you put offers on? Did you miss a house that you should have put an offer on? There's a multitude of questions, and I don't find a lot of agents do what I do.
Hey, Steve.
I finalize it, I know who I'm dealing with.
Hey, Steve, I know the Great Neck market very well, and I have to tip my hat to Phil. Technology is great, and we're rolling out in the next couple months, which, it's highly classified, so I really can't talk about it as much as I want to, but
we won't tell anyone else.
We're rolling out some amazing technology, but Phil, you still have to have that old-fashioned way of doing business. Before technology, we used to do business with a handshake. Now, I've been fortunate enough in my life to own 3 successful businesses. Never signed contracts years ago. It was a handshake. That's all you had. You had your word. And you still need that old-fashioned way of doing business. I don't care how much technology anybody has, because look, we've all embraced it. Deborah has it. Dennis has it. I have it. Phil has it. But you still need that old-fashioned way of doing business, because that's how we used to do business. Anybody that's been in,
Tony, we still do. But not
Exactly.
everybody does. 90% of us don't do it.
Well, that's very true. But guess what?
So you got to
If you
train
look
all your
around-
agents to do it the
if-
right way.
If you look around at Daniel Gale, if you look around at Compass, if you look at Douglas Elliman, there are plenty of agents that are top agents that embrace the technology to a certain extent, but still do business that old-fashioned way.
That's
And
right.
I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't have that, not everybody, I understand not everybody is going to do business that way. And I get it. And I'm not saying that that should be the way that everybody should do business. But yes, we all embrace the technology because we have to.
But
Right.
yes, everybody should be doing it that way, and 90% of them don't. And the other 10%, part of them don't do it right. They just have referrals, and it's the elitist talking to the elitist agent. I get it, but 90% of the agents don't make a living. The average income of an agent, 2.4 million agents in the country, is 42 to 49,000. I couldn't live a month on that kind of money. Are you kidding me? Too many mortgages.
That couldn't pay your liquor bill, Phil. Come on.
No, wait. You must drink more than I do.
Bill, I think the important thing is when you are a part of a real estate company, small, large, medium, whatever it is, it's your responsibility at the broker level when you bring new people in to train them and to train them on how to do business the right way and to lead them to a path where they understand the way to do business ethically, the tools that they need to have available to them. They need a mentor. They need to get started. But then you let them go, and some of them are going to sink and some of them are going to swim. It's like any other sales business.
90% are going to sink.
That may be, but I don't think that's the root
That's the fault
of
of
anything
the
that
brokers who have these larger companies. I hate to say this, guys, I'm not knocking you. It's the training. If you don't train
Training.
the right way, they're gone. And 65% fail the second year. They're
I think
out.
that's how we started this conversation. The training from day one is the most important thing you can do with an agent. You have to
Give me 6 figures, I'll sell my company and you can hire me.
You know what was funny? 25, 30 years ago, what training? I mean, when I started, they stuck me in a damp basement. Now, I had come from owning a successful business, and I always had my real estate license. I wanted for investment purposes, and I wanted to check retail out. I had some time, and they stuck me in a damp basement. When I went downstairs, everybody was wearing their coats. It was this time of year, and they said, if you need me, the manager would say, if you need me, I'm upstairs. And I'll never forget it. Some old timer next to me said, "Hey kid, come here. Don't ask him anything. He knows nothing. If you want to know anything, ask me and I'll help you." And it's a true story. And I'll tell you, it really opened my eyes because, that was just right around when Stratus was just becoming available. It really wasn't, MLS was really nothing at that time. They were using the old books. And, by the time you went through the book, the house would be sold. So, again, Deborah, you make a great point. I just think that training, when you talk about training, look at where we've come from, where there was literally no training. I mean, I taught myself basically everything that I know in real estate, through the years. Of course, now we have trainers, and we have amazing speakers, and whether it's Ferry, Buffini, whoever it might be, and there's always
Brian Buffini, not Barry, Brian Buffini.
Okay. Does everyone have a training program? Do you have a formal training program that you offer the agents?
Absolutely.
And now this is a time where Compass has come in, so there's movement when there's somebody new. Interestingly, this year is the year that Compass chose to come in heavy onto Long Island, which is either that was you knew something that we didn't know, or that was not a very good move, but in terms of timing. So Compass came in, and part of that is you're opening up offices and recruiting staff. So now you have people that are now looking at other places. So this is the issue. How do you keep good people? What is the key to getting people? What is the key to keeping good people? Tony, you want to address that?
Absolutely. So, retention is a big part of this business. And again, It's all about trust. It's all about loyalty. Of course, you're going to have people that are going to explore different avenues, and that's their right.
Mhm.
But I think that when you have a brand, when you have technology, when you have the training, we talked about training a few minutes ago. We have Jeffrey Scott Stanton. I have to tell you right now, we are very lucky to have this gentleman running our training department. He's been a realtor. He's been a mortgage banker. He's has a master's in education. He's been a teacher, and he runs the program well. And I think that, when you have all these tools, when you have technology, when you have the training, when you have the support, okay, I have people calling me 10, 11 o'clock at night sometimes, and, I'll pick up my phone if I'm awake.
Where's your
And-
wife?
Excuse me?
Where's your wife?
Phil, you call me at 11 o'clock. I pick up your calls, right?
Okay, you got it. Your
But,
phone-
I'm being serious that, you need all of these avenues for retention. And like I said, people are always going to explore and believe that the grass is greener on the other side, and that's their right. And maybe, look, it's very easy to buy agents, but you can't buy loyalty, right? You can't buy. I went on an appointment with a new agent. Now I'm running the entire North Shore region now. I went on a new agent had reached out to me and said, "Hey, can you come on this appointment with me? My manager's busy." I said, "Sure, no problem." I went on the appointment with the agent, and I think the agent was surprised that I was able to go on this appointment with them. And I just think that that's part of the win-win of retention is support and all the brand and everything else that goes with it, training.
Deborah?
I would agree with Tony. I think Compass made a smart move by coming out to Long Island because New York was, I mean, I think Dennis spoke of it earlier, that New York was, they recognized that New York was tough and they were coming out here. Look, it's a very long island. There's plenty to go around. I think that agents have to feel comfortable with the brand that they're with this, as Tony said, I'll beg to him that the support is there. I mean, we've been here, we're celebrating our 100th year anniversary next year. So we've seen a lot of companies come into our market since we opened. Compass may be the latest big one. But, I think agents have to feel the love. They have to feel support. They have to know from day one that the people in their office are there to support them, that they're there to answer questions, that their manager is there to advocate for them, that their company is part of the community where they live and work in, so that they're invested. And then again, if there's a competitor that comes in and they want to explore it, they're independent contractors. So, I don't think you can buy loyalty, as Tony said. I think that's something that you earn. And that we all work very hard to earn that from the day an agent joins our brand. And, we hope to foster long-term relationships. We have agents in our company that have been here 30, 40 years. We have ones that have been here 30, 40 minutes and everything in between. So, I think you have to treat them all the same way, and you have to guide them along in whatever point they are in their business. Technology will come, will go. There's always going to be a new shiny penny around the corner. And those people that need to jump, as Tony said, they're going to jump. If they jump today to Delgus Elliman, then tomorrow they might jump to Compass and they may jump back to me. Those are the agent. There's always going to be those agents. But I think that our focus is on training the agents to understand the needs of the consumer. And if we're there to help them with that, then they're going to stay loyal to us.
Well said.
Thank you.
So Dennis, you were tasked with opening these offices, or at least helping in the opening of these offices in the midst of a pandemic.
Yes.
So the question is, what did you do to gain the ire of whoever did this to you? And how did you deal with that?
I'll tell you, well, first of all, we didn't come to Long Island because of COVID. We were in Long Island. This has been a plan for many, many months, if not a year in the making. We moved quickly into the island in January, and we had temporary spaces. So we had conversations with agents longer before that. We had temporary spaces in Manhasset and Huntington early on in January. Unfortunately, we were hit heavy with COVID, like you all were, at a very early stage of our expansion. I am fortunate to be involved here with this expansion, probably because I had a 516 area code. No, that's not it. It's because I live here. You know, I'm part of the culture here, as well as our regional president, Rory, who is from Long Island as well. So we know the markets here. We are. We know the players. It was a challenge, absolutely. It was a challenge just working in general come March 13th, but we continued, and it did not. We didn't stop. We still continue to have conversations with agents. We still continue to onboard agents. When we say onboard, that's the first day of when an agent comes to work with us, where we have to teach them everything from, you know, the email system to how to enter a check for closing. That onboarding we did for over 150 agents, all virtually, and it was successful. We have support. Tony and Deborah are 100% right. Without support, a brokerage is nothing. And we're really proud to say at Compass, we have a wonderful, wonderful support system with our agent experience team, our marketing teams. Each agent is assigned to an agent experience manager, a sales manager, a marketing advisor, all who assist them with their everyday interactions within the company. So that has allowed us to effectively, the overwhelming support has allowed us to move forward with several offices on Long Island. We're so proud of our first offices, Manhasset and Huntington. We've gone on to open Garden City, Locust Valley, Syosset. We're proud to say Woodbury is opening. We love our teams working out of Roslyn, Oceanside, and down in Hewlett as well. So we've really, we've been impressed by our reception to the island. We didn't anticipate that we would have this many offices this quickly and this population of agents diversified throughout the island. We anticipated we would only be in the Manhasset and Huntington market, but news of us spread pretty quickly. And there, as my colleagues here on the call say, there's always movement in real estate. There's always an opportunity for an agent to come and go, you know. But I do pride us on our support across the board, coupled with technology, married with that personal support that only top agents can give, has managed to really maintain very high retention levels in the 8 years that we've been open here in the New York market.
Let me ask one other thing that we have one of our questioners asking, which I would be remiss if I didn't. There was an investigation by Newsday that found that minority buyers were being steered to certain geographic areas.
Oh, yeah.
And it was seemingly, it was kind of in a lot of different places that was happening. What has been done by your offices to prevent that going forward? I know that you have big staffs, you can't control everybody. But what do you do to maintain that people are being handled fairly?
Fair housing is a very, very, very important issue today. You know, there is an immense amount of training that goes into fair housing, and now the state has decided that they were going to add a disclosure form to the mega paperwork that we already have, which is beneficial. And I'm all for the fair housing laws, of course. I'm sure everybody else on this panel is. I think that it's long overdue. But there's a great amount of training that goes into fair housing on a daily basis. And I think, you know, sometimes it could be an inadvertent thing that's said, and the agent may not even realize that they're violating the fair housing laws. So I think there's an immense amount of training that goes into fair housing, even before Long Island divided, but I think more so now that it's been brought to everybody's attention that it's a real problem.
Dennis, you had a, so are you nodding?
Yeah, I'll have to say, fair housing, I think, as Tony said, you have to continuously keep it top of mind of your agents. And that's why I'm grateful for the disclosure, the new disclosure that agents have to have. And it's on the brokerages to offer regularly throughout the year fair housing training to their agents, bring in attorneys who can really speak to this and cover all the bases. Of course, there are violations that happen accidentally where agents are unaware that they made a violation. But unfortunately, there are violations that happen that are just so egregious, they're not tolerated. And at Compass, our stance is the agent is terminated effective immediately if that's the case.
Deborah, is that the case in Daniel Gale as well?
Yes, absolutely. We're very proud of our fact that we were not named in the fair housing expose that Newsday did. And many of our agents were tested. And we take fair housing very seriously. I agree with Dennis and Tony. The disclosure is an excellent reminder to everyone every day. And it has to be something that is discussed on a regular basis. It's like anything. The more you practice it, the more familiar it becomes to you. So I think that it's top of mind, and we have to take it very seriously.
Okay. We're going to wrap up by.
Can I get the comment?
You can go ahead, Phil.
I know you don't want to speak to me anymore. I had enough.
Go ahead, Phil.
I think, everybody's made a very valid point, but the one thing I've noticed, common sense is no longer common. People should know automatically that they should do things the right way. They don't need to be taught how not to discriminate. But unfortunately, we're in a world of craziness right now. And we've been taught how to discriminate by, I'm not going to mention the name. So the point is that training is one thing, common sense is another. So when you train somebody, you obviously train them so they don't discriminate. But common sense says if they can afford to buy a house in Great Neck or Roosevelt, wherever it may be, that's where you take them. You don't steer them to some other location because you feel they're not up to par to your standards. And that's where there's a problem. And I hope the Department of State eliminates some more agents so we'll have less dead wood in the business.
Thank you. Quickly, we're going to wrap up. I'd like to get just 30 seconds from each of you on a recommendation for buyer or seller of how to navigate this period in our lives. So, Phil, I know you feel neglected. I'll let you start.
The way to navigate this business.
30 seconds, Phil. I edit him, so I know that you have to emphasize the 30 seconds.
All right, 30 seconds I have?
Yes.
Okay. The way to navigate this business, you just got to keep pivoting. You got to keep going in different directions. And as the old saying goes, if you keep doing the same thing, miraculously thinking that something's going to change, you're insane. There's a lot of insane people out there. So you got to keep training until you're looking up at wood or you have no more pulse. You got to keep doing things that will advance your knowledge and your expertise. So when you get yourself or your agents on the phone, listen, McDonald's wouldn't be as big as they are if the hamburgers tasted differently. That's why wherever you go, the hamburger is the same. And that's the way most companies should be training, but don't.
Okay. Tony?
So I guess my advice would be to seek proper representation, somebody you feel comfortable with, somebody who's going to look out for your best interest, and obviously ethically and fairly. I think there are great brokers on this Zoom call tonight, companies especially, and I think that if you seek the proper representation from the proper individual, you will know. And I think that it's a big thing today because Phil made a point earlier by saying, he basically said that he does it the old-fashioned way. And like I said before, technology is great, but my advice is that you need to seek the proper person that you can work with, that you're going to get the information that you need, as Deborah said before, the consumer, most important. And I think that that's really what has to be done. If you don't feel comfortable working with someone, then you don't have the right person.
But one thing I want to mention, Tony, it's old-fashioned with the high-tech touch technology.
I agree, Phil.
All right, we'll let Dennis go next, and we'll let Deborah finish for us.
Thanks, Steve. Phil is exactly right. It's the coupling of that technology and that relationship. My advice to any buyer going to the market is exactly that. Find an agent that you trust, an agent that knows the market, and an agent that can really speak to you however you feel you're going to need to be supported. And so many of the buyers coming into the market nowadays are younger, and they are looking for support, and they want to be involved in the search themselves. And that's going to come through technology. So I think if I were a buyer coming to the market, or if someone asked me, I would say align yourself with a broker who's fully aware of the market, that you mesh with, knows technology, and do not rely on aggregator sites. Work with a brokerage.
Okay.
I like that. Dan. I like
Deborah?
I agree. First of all, thank you for having me tonight, and it's been a pleasure to be with you gentlemen. My advice, the only thing I can add that the gentlemen haven't already said, is that, it's not a bad idea to ask for a recommendation. I think that that's how you meet people. That's, how you find your doctor, your dentist, and everybody in between, is to speak to the people that you trust in your life and ask them for a recommendation. It's very important to work with someone who understands the local market, who've done your research on them, but it's not a bad idea to ask people for a recommendation either. And I just do think that that's very important.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank our panelists for a very informative discussion, as well as those who attended. I would also like to thank again our sponsors, which were Northwell Health, Douglas Elliman, and Daniel Gale, for sponsoring this evening's discussion. For those who are unable to watch today, a recording of the debate can be discussion. I've been interviewing candidates, so you're lucky I didn't ask you for why you should be.
I thought we were very cordial.
I was
Politics.
tempted. Having flashbacks to my last town hall. For those who want to watch our discussion, our very civil discussion, an informative one, you can go to our website, islandnow.com, and you can click on, there'll be a tab to take you to a YouTube channel. We also had it on our Facebook. If you go to our Facebook home, we're seeing a lot of people do that. You'll be able to link quickly to the Island Now from YouTube. We'll also be doing a story on this evening's event that'll appear in our 6 newspapers next week. And I hope that all of you will join us Thursday, December 17th, when I sit down one-on-one with Michael Dowling, the president and CEO of Northwell Health, to discuss the COVID crisis, where we are, where we've been, and where we're going. It sounds like this panel will be very interested in knowing some of the answers that he can provide. Michael Dowling has been a leader, not only in this area, but in the state of New York in doing this. So we expect to hopefully provide a little more information that I think our panel and everyone else really wants to know about. But again, thank you for a fantastic panel discussion. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks, Dennis. Thanks, Deborah.
Thank you,
Phil.
gentlemen.
Nice to meet you all.
Have a nice evening.
Okay.
Phil, behave yourself.
I've never seen
I'm
Tim's
also
comment
for
again.
sale to the highest bidder.
Okay. Thank you again. Thank you for
Thanks again.
attending.
Thanks again, Steve. We'll talk soon.